to start my timer. I'm going to take about 7 minutes to talk about three things. One is why I'm involved in this project. Two, some of the things that have changed and that I've learned during my time here in Western Sahara and with the Khaya family. And the last kind of category is about accomplishments, things that we've been doing, things that are happening, with some asterisks there, since it's not really us as an American team that's doing the work, but we're very honored to be an instrument in the Sahrawi strategy. So I joined this project on it really at the core of it on the basis of really caring about life and caring about engaging with life at a really fundamental level. And when I'm most engaged and when I'm really listening and taking in care, I feel very connected to peace and to justice and to work for that. And I think when the deciding factors really were that the Sahrawi people and the Khaya family in particular were asking for a tool, they were calling for the presence of American passport holders, and also, as you've heard, Mervyn joined us as an additional presence, and an American permanent resident and member of the team, that they were the ones making this call, that the Sahrawi community was choosing a strategy, and that we could meet their call by responding to what they were asking for. That was a big deciding factor for me in signing on. And the second factor is understanding what the Khaya family was living through and what they were facing as human rights violations. Their confinement, their torture, their rape, the impact of intimidation and constant potential for violence on them. Once that was clear, and once it was clear that they had asked for us to come, deciding to come was a very easy decision for me. And when I think back to the focus on the Khaya family in particular, and the kinds of abuse that they were enduring for the 482 days before we arrived, it's easy for me to transition to some of the learnings and changes that I've experienced over the month that I've been living with them. Because when we first arrived, our whole focus was really to get into the house and to name 3 demands that were boiled down from a list of 10, mostly asking for the human rights violations to end and a guarantee for safety. But those demands, those points that we needed to see were that there was an end to rape of the Khaya family, an end to the physical violence on them. The second was a freedom to move in and out of the house, to accept guests and to go wherever they need to, without fear of retribution. And then finally, to get the attention of some international human rights organizations who could come to the Khaya family home, document the abuses, and write a report for public use and dissemination. And when I think about that as our original mandate and the request that we came through with, I'm deeply humbled by the narrowness of that mission. And one of the first things that landed as a learning once we arrived at the house was within 20 minutes of coming into a dark home that stank of sewage and stank of acetone and has peeling walls still, had almost no furniture in it except in one room. We came in the dark, And it was threadbare, bare bones survival, a prison. And when we realized that we'd arrived, we'd gotten in and established connection enough to start realizing that we could talk with each other. And Sultana, in those first 20 minutes, after saying how excited she was that we were here and how glad she was that we'd made it, started talking about the entire Sahrawi community and how it was the entire community that was experiencing the violence that we had heard about only through her family as a lens. But within the hours when more neighbors and more activists started coming to the house, she took the time on that first day after being released from her situation, or partly released, relieved in some ways, to point at people and say, that one over there, she's also had her house surrounded for months at a time. That one over there, she had toxic chemicals poured on her and her children. Have you heard about that one? She was raped as well. And to make it clear that the thing that had moved us to come had also affected the whole community, was such a lens shift that opened up all the other learnings. And that was on the first day. And we've had, I realize I'm at minute 7 right now. I have to stop. But that was a learning on just the first 3 hours that we were in the house. And I would say that every hour since then, in the probably 34 days that we've been here, has been that rich. And there are, I hope that there's time to talk more about it, but I'm gonna end because the most important person you need to hear from is Sultana, and her translator is here and ready. And I'm gonna just pass it right along to her and refocus the camera. So thank you. Thank you.
في البداية نرفع تحياتي للمتحدثة سلطانة، رئيسة الرابطة الصحراوية للدفاع عن حقوق الإنسان وحماية الثروات بوجدور المحتلة، عضوة الهيئة الصحراوية لمناهضة الاحتلال المغربي. باسمي
I'm Sultana. My name is Sultana Khaya. I am the president of the Sahrawi League here in occupied territories, and I am also a member of the ISACOM organization that defending about human rights.
بالفعل أنا كصحراوية كمدافعة عن حقوق الإنسان نتحدث عن يعني تجربتي دفاع عن حقوق الإنسان، وراني مثل بسيط مع اللي يعني عن دفاع المرأة الصحراوية اللي هي من 75 إلى يومنا هذا، بدفاعها القوي، بدفاعها من أجل السلام، بدفاعها من أجل يعيش الشعب بحرية وبسلام. يعني إحنا باقيات نعيش كنساء صحراويات اللي يعني تعيش المرأة في العالم، ونحن نفقد هاي النقطة.
I am a human rights defender, and I am defending about the situation of human rights and monitoring the natural resources in occupied territories, and defending about the situation of human rights here in occupied territories. And I am also a simple example of the Sahrawi woman that's suffering under occupation, and I am not the first example. I am only an example which talk about and defending about this situation.
أنا دخلت يعني نقول نشكر الفريق اللي هو الحقيقة قدم وعزم بقوته وبإرادته لين وصل منزل عائلته الخية في يوم 16 في الشهر الماضي، اللي الحقيقة كان سند لي، ما هو سند لي أنا، سند للصحراويات كاملة اللي هما يعانوا تحت ولاية الاحتلال. عارف دريانة، عالي، زينة، يعني عنه هذا الفريق اللي الحقيقة كان في المستوى وكان عمله ناجح.
I want to thank the American delegation and American volunteer that show solidarity and come here to Bujdur occupied, to Bujdur city in order to break the siege and show solidarity, and they actually become like a candle That's a light in a tunnel, in a darkness tunnel. They are becomes a candle for us and for all the Sahrawi people here.
بصفتي ناشطة من 2005 اللي هي كانت انتفاضة الاستقلال اللي كانت هي فرج للشعب الصحراوي اللي عبر يعني مش مباشرة يعبر في المدن المحتلة في المواقع الجامعية يعني بتجربتي بهذا الدفاع اللي من 2005 اللي تعرضت للعديد من الانتهاكات الجسيمة لحقوق الإنسان واللي هو الحقيقة مثل بسيط مع يعني رغم أني في شبابي فقدت عيني تحت جلادة الاحتلال المغربي بالتعذيب بالإهانة بالشتم بالتحرش الجنسي عليه.
Since 2005, the beginning of Intifada or the uprising here in occupied territories, I start my experience defending about the situation of human rights here in Western Sahara, and the Moroccan authorities practiced all kind of torture. Since that time in 2005, I lost my rights. In a demonstration in the university in 2007, and all that events happened. Morocco was responsible in any abuses or any sexual or any assault that's happened to me since that time.
اللي تعرضت ما هو يعني عنه فاق العين نفس مولي الوقت حكموا علي بالسجن 18 سجن نافذة وكانوا الشباب اللي معايا اللي حكموا عليهم بسنة فهذا كامل يعني عنها فاي المسيرة كاملة النضالية اللي يعني عني رغم أني طلبوا علي السويد ومشيت لبرشلونة ودرت عملية فهذه الطيلة كاملة يعني بعد رجوعي تعرضت لنفس الشيء يعني لا تغير شيء. الاحتلال المغربي يوم بعد يوم هو يعني إنسان عليه عنفنا ورغم أن هذا تتواجد ما تسمى المينورس والأمم المتحدة اللي هي لا للشيء للشعب الصحراوي هي احتلال ثاني بالنسبة لي أنا بين إحنا كصحراويين اللي عندنا قد يحمينا الأمم المتحدة والأمم المتحدة كانت تشارك في مأسرتنا كانت تسلم الشباب الصحراوي اللي نقيموا قايسين مقرات يدوروا يعني عنهم كانوا ينقذوا حياتهم وما يسلموهم مباشرة الاحتلال المغربي.
Even though I lost my eye, they sentenced me for 6 months, and her friend sentenced for 1 year, almost 1 year in the university after the demonstration. After that, I get a medical treatment in Sweden and in Barcelona, in Spain. All this responsible by Morocco. Even though this happened to me, I never stopped my struggling, believing in the peaceful process, starting and managing and defending about my situation. And as I mentioned before, I am just an example. I am simply example, especially actually I am the example who talk actually, because since 1975 Morocco used all this kind of torture in order to stop us from struggling. But all of this just push us and start in order to get our rights. And also, even though there is a mission monitoring and calling for a referendum since 1991, which is called Minorso here, and nothing, actually nothing. We are really frustrated from it. Nothing happened. The long process make people more frustrated here in occupied territories and in Western Sahara in general.
تكلم معي باش تعود عندي الوقت قليل. هذا يعني عنه هذا كامل. رانا عندنا السجناء محكوم عليهم مؤبد، عندنا السجناء محكوم عليهم ب10 سنين و15 سنة ب20 و35 و30 باطل و25. هذا كامل يعني عنه المعاناة اللي نعانوا احنا كشعب. بتجربتي داخل هذا المنزل اللي هو من يوم 19 نوفمبر 2020 اللي أنا دخلت تحت إقامة جبرية ومارست علي جميع الأشكال من طرف الاحتلال المغربي، واللي الحقيقة اغتصبت وعذبت ونقحمت يعني، ومارس علي على أمي على شقيقتي على الأخوة اللي تواجد معايا. كان منع جميع الصحراويين مني، كان منع صحراوي ولا صحراوية جايين يتواجدوا ينقطع أرزاقهم ويتم يعني عليهم هذا ما قالوا هما التزام إحنا هذا الالتزام ما نعرف عنه، ما هو خالق غير شكلية مارسها قوات الاحتلال المغربي. هاي المواد السامة بتجربتي مع رفاقي اللي هم تواجدوا معايا في داخل المنزل ورفيقاتي اللي راكم شفتوا في هاي طيلة إشهار، كانت يعني حرية إن إحنا وراء الحصار. أنا ما نقول ارتفاع، الحصار جزئي به اللي نحن مضبوط علينا في الاتجاهات الأربعة، الحصار ما ارتفع أبداً.
Sultana said many points. I will conclude it. She said that to talk about the late experience, which is the house arrested that faced since 90 November 2020. And after that, they practiced all kind of torture. You can't imagine, even though you can imagine all that kind, assaulting, rape, injection, all that kind, throwing with the toxic substances, all that kind you can imagine, and can occupier do it to the peaceful people. They did it to this family actually. But when the volunteers and the group come, they become like a candle. They stop, they move it from close to the house. They move, they are still in the neighborhood. They are watching us right now. They are still outside. They beat the woman. They do all that stuff. But they will not stop the siege and the house arrested. They still in the neighborhood. They are surrounding us, and we can see them right now.
والصورة الحقيقية الهمجية الاحتلال المغربي راهي عبرت عنها جسد زينب وبابي، عبرت عنها جسد فاطمة الحفيظي، عبرت عنها حاجتنا بابي، فاطمة بابي، مباركة الحفيظي، ميل منين عبد الله ابراهيم. هذو الرفيقات اللي لا لشيء الا انهم كصحراويات يعبروا تحديات الاحتلال المغربي اللي هي صورتهم اليوم ملتخات دماهم بيدين الاحتلال المغربي. واللي عنا احنا كنساء صحراويات رانا ما نحملوا سلاح، ما نحملوا سلاح ابيض، ما نحملوا حجره، ما نحملوا دبوس، لا نحملوا العلم الجمهوريه العربيه الصحراويه الديمقراطيه. ورانا كاملات كنساء نتكلم باسمي وباسم الشعب الصحراوي وباسم رفيقاتي، رانا كاملات مشروع شهاده ان شاء الله من اجل اجيالنا تعيش بكرامه، من اجل ذوك اللي في اللجوء عايشات. يعني نحن ده كامل عمي عنه العالم ما يشوف واقع. نحن كنساء صحراويات، كنساء أعطينا القالب النفيس من أجل الكرامة، من أجل الدفاع، من أجل أن ما نكره الشعب المغربي، لا ما نكره، مساويينه مع الشعوب كاملة. غير هذا النظام اللي هو نظام السادس، اللي هو الجريمة الوحيدة اللي يرتكبه هذا الشعب الصحراوي اللي يعدلونه يقطعونه، وفي النهاية هذا كامل نحمله مسؤوليته المحمد السادس ملك الاحتلال المغربي.
We are struggling as a peaceful woman, and the best answer from Moroccan authorities is the picture of Zainab Baboui, and you see the trace in her body and how they torture her, and you can see Hajatna Babi, and you can see Mubarak Al-Hafidi, and you can see Fatma Babi. All that's name are Sahrawi women from Boujdour city. They beat them by Moroccan authorities. They tortured them. They cut salaries. They sign many time a blank paper as assignments in order not to reach to the Sultana's or Khaya's house. All this Morocco, they want to isolate Sultana. They want to push her in one corner, just in that corner. But Sultana said this is will not stop her or her friends from struggling, because they have the desire, they have the targeted independence in order to achieve it one day. They are tortured as a woman because their weapon is their voice, their flag. They didn't throw stones or carrying guns. They are struggling in a peaceful way and believing in a peaceful process and still believing in it.
أنا الوقت قاعد أتخطى، خلينا نقول شوي قطعا عن التواجد معي الفريق في داخل منزل عائلتي. حسيت ونحس عن الشعب الصحراوي، رغم أننا من المعاناة نحسوا عنا مانا وحيدين. أنا راه خالق شعوب، خالق مجتمع مدني واقف إلى جانب الشعب الصحراوي، واقف إلى جانب المرأة الصحراوية، في وجود زينة، في وجود عالي، نحس بوجود عارف وأمل اللي يعني عنهم كان الوقت قصير. غير حسيت أنا عني ماني وحدي، حسيت عن معايا الناس اللي مضحية حتى هي ساخية بأرواحها من أجل كرامة الشعب الصحراوي، وذا هو اللي نعتز به ويزيدني قوة ويزيدني إرادة. إلهي نقولكم في الأخير ونشكركم على هذا تسليط الضوء على معاناة هذا الشعب. أراكم شفتوا هذا العياش اللي يدخل المغربي اللي يسبنا، يعلم الله يسبونا ذوك ما يعرفونا، والأحراد اللي يعني عنه هو محاصرنا، ما نعرفوه ما يغتصبنا، ما نعرفوه ما يعذبنا، ما نعرفوه يعني عنه يعدل لنا. هذه ذلك رسالتي الأخيرة لجميع أحرار العالم، للمنظمات اللي هم يدافعوا عن الكرامة وعن الحرية ولا عنف. نحن كنيسة رانا عطيات أجسادنا نبتطوا ونعذبوا، غير نحن ما نعنفوا، نحن ما نسوا أحد، لا نحن نطالبوا لا بديل عن تقرير المصير، لا بديل عن بنيان الدولة الصحراوية على كامل ترابها، لا بديل عن رجوع اللاجئات، لا بديل عن إطلاق سراح كافة المعتقلين السياسي القابعين في السجون. واسمحوا لي عندي اللي نقول يا غير الوقت قصير قصير قصير، وتحية لكم طولت عليكم.
The time is not enough to conclude or to translate what Sultana said, because it's a mini feeling and many tears, and it's full of emotions. Sultana said that even though they are a peaceful woman, they made their decision. They become like a martyrs in order to the next generation live, because this delegation she now feel a little bit safe, even though this happened to her before, and this practiced on her. It's a really shame, which is you can't express, and how Morocco used this against a peaceful Sahrawi woman. And also Sultana want to thank free people around the world, and that show solidarity and show support to her and to her family, and also to her people. We have a noble message to all around the world. We want to build our country. We want our rights. We are struggling for our rights. We want independence. We are waiting a referendum since a long time, since 3 decades, and we didn't achieve anything. We hope one day to have a solution to this case, and no alternative to self-determination. And thank you deeply. I hope as a translator to be succeeded to translate all this feeling and all this emotion that Sultana said. And thank you all.
Thank you.